The schedule for Boston College and the ACC is out. It's tough. Can Boston College make it to a bowl game? We're going to talk about it.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. I've been hosting this show for over 5 years. If you're looking for Boston College news, analysis, and details on your Eagles, you are in the right place. Locked On BC is a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Again, $20 off your first purchase. On today's show, we're going to talk a little bit about the Senior Bowl, but the big news of the day is that the schedule is out for the 2026 football season, and we have a lot to talk about. And to join us and get another perspective on this, we have of Eagle Insider, Mitchell Wolfe. Mitch, how's it going?
It's going well. Excited to be back on. It's been a while. Been motoring through the transfer portal, which you've been taking care of mostly on the podcast feed. So, because it's been quite a busy last few weeks, and luckily things have turned around at least a little bit since I was last on and talked about the eruption of Vesuvius and the fall of Rome. That was the early part of the transfer portal. But as they say, hope springs eternal. We've never been more back. And soon, if not sooner, it'll all be over once again.
Yes, it's the cycle, right? Everything's about a cycle, and that's where we're at right now. And we're at the beginning stage where, again, hope is feeling good. You're feeling like, that things might be heading in the right direction. Or some people maybe, I don't know. But
I know there's people that are talking themselves into 9-3 looking at the schedule, because I mean, hey, who among us hasn't done that for years, where you look at every schedule like, hey, this could be the year. It's 9-3. It's possible.
I have to say, I'm going to be blunt on the front end of this. This is the most skeptical I have felt about BC football in a long time. Mm-hmm. And that says a lot. I know a lot of you, say that I have maroon and gold sunglasses and I'm always positive and Pollyanna about everything. But this is a tough one. Let's go over the schedule and kick it off. The first thing I think we need to talk about is this out-of-conference schedule, which we knew about heading in today, but I think it's the first point that we should talk about. BC has 3 Power Force out-of-conference opponents: Notre Dame on the road, Rutgers, and the season opener on the road at Cincinnati. What are your thoughts?
Don't forget, Notre Dame's not in a conference unless they want to be.
Right.
Depending on the day, depending on the cycle of the moon and the star sign is when Notre Dame wants to feel like they're in a conference. So make sure you keep that in mind.
So Cincinnati, they lost their quarterback to Texas Tech, who is, arguably one of the better quarterbacks in the country. How is this team looking? Scott Satterfield, I think we all have seen him here. He's the head coach of Louisville, and Jeff Hafley, I think, made him look silly at times, and he wasn't obvious. Louisville folks I know don't have the greatest things to say about him. Starting the season off on the road at Cincinnati is tough, but is it manageable?
You talk about cycles, and there's the Scott Satterfield cycle where it's everything's terrible, and then he'll win a few games like right when he's on the verge of being fired, and then they'll get back to it, and then they're like, oh, this is the year they're gonna. And I guess it was kind of last year for them when they had Brendan Sorsby. Oh, this year we're gonna take the next step. We're gonna do all this stuff, and then they, fall on their face at the end of the year. I liked Sorsby a decent bit. Thought he was a good quarterback. I think he'll do well at Texas Tech. I know they lose Dante Corleone, the nose tackle, to the NFL, who's a very fun player, very good player. And I think linebacker Jake Golday is also leaving. So they are losing a lot to the next level, kind of like a BC situation. I haven't looked. I'll look into their portal class now because I haven't really looked at it yet. But as we've talked about on this show, BC has won 2 road games in Bill O'Brien's tenure, the first and the most recent, first being at Florida State, which was, it was a top 10 win. And then it turned out to really be nothing of consequence because it was a terrible Florida State team. And then they won their last game of last year on the road against Syracuse, who was also terrible team without much to play for. So he can win on the road, but it's like when he's played a team with a pulse on the road, it's typically not gone well. So given that, it's going to be week 1, so both teams are going to look a lot different. That's going to be the fun part, at least, is that you don't really know what you're going to get with either of these teams in terms of what their schemes are going to look like. I need to see if Cincinnati's coaching has changed, but they're going to have a lot of new players, so you're going to have to see, okay, who's going to be who's going to be quarterback for both teams, who's going to be skill position players, can they play at this level, and then that'll probably set the season for both teams. And it's probably not big enough to be deemed an anxiety bowl, and it's not late enough for the season where there's a ton at stake, but it's a tone setting anxiety bowl, if you will, where whichever team loses is gonna be like, oh god, this season's over. We're not gonna win a game the rest of the season, which that happens almost after every BC game anyways.
So their quarterback is gonna probably be JC French the fourth, who played for Georgia Southern last year, had 2,009 touchdowns.
I know
2,929 yards, 20 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. And is he mobile? I don't know.
I don't really think so, if my memory serves me correctly. So
he is not.
That's interesting because Satterfield typically likes mobile quarterbacks. You think about, he had Malik Cunningham at Louisville. He had Sorsby at Cincinnati. So they typically like the mobile quarterbacks. So, and I'd have to look into it more, but French, from what my memory tells me, is not one of those type of players. That is an interesting addition for them.
And so then week 2 goes on to we just lost Mitch somehow. I think he probably accidentally X'd out his screen. But week 2, talking about a transfer edition quarterback, we play Rutgers on September 11th, the 25th anniversary of the terrorist attacks. Red bandana game for all you folks that have been hoping to get that on the weekend of 9/11 or adjacent to it. You have that. You also get homecoming for Dylan Lonergan, who will be in week 2 back at Alumni Stadium like he never left, playing for the Rutgers Scarlet Knights.
Yeah, I'm back. That's what you get for trying to look up too many things on too many different tabs at the same time. You close the stream tab. Moving on to the next game with Rutgers. Like you said, very excited. This is back on the weekend of 9/11. It's going to be on 9/11, the 25th anniversary of it, which is going to be a very emotional weekend for really both fan bases. Rutgers, it kind of counts themselves as New York's team a little bit, at least on the Big Ten commercial. So that's big for their fan base, obviously, probably one of the more affected colleges by the tragedies. And then on the football side, obviously, the return of Dylan Lonergan is going to be a huge storyline. I'm sure he's going to want to stick it to BC, given that he, got benched. It didn't end as bad as it did with Thomas Castellanos, but didn't necessarily end great. So,
yep. And so there's that game. And then you go on to week 3, and I just lost my tab. Maine. Last time BC played Maine was a quarterback that just beat BC last year, Joe Fignano, correct?
Indeed.
And that was a game again in I love that they have a little tab that you can actually see it. It was on in 2022, a 38-17 win. If I remember that game, it felt a lot closer at a lot of that.
Yeah, I think BC scored kind of towards the end to push it to 3 scores. It was like late, and it was like, okay, we can finally breathe these, because it was like 2 scores, like 10 to 14 points most of the way, maybe even closer. I feel like Phil Dracovic threw a really bad interception down in the red zone, if I remember correctly. I believe it was also I could be wrong. I feel like that might have been a Kobe White returning to BC game.
It sure was. And he didn't play it on.
I think he played like 1 snap, and maybe he got a reception late. I can't remember, but I remember that being a storyline going into that game too. So that was interesting.
Yep. So there's your one
FCS game, and FCS. Maine is, from what I remember when I was looking up FCS teams, Maine is not super special in terms of in the CAA. I think they're in another New Balance matchup. Both teams wear New Balance for the uniforms. So there's another interesting storyline.
So you start off with 3 out of conference games, and in a moment, Mitch and I are going to get into the conference schedule, where you start off with James Franklin and I believe it's his ACC first game as well. We'll talk a bit about that in just a moment. This is Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who show there's more to the score than what's on screen. If you watched BC basketball last week, there was an exciting 2 wins with some big shots. Fred Payne was all over the place. Even when they lost to Notre Dame, Fred Payne has been the man. He has shown that he can be the star. Even when Donald Hanna has struggled, Payne has picked it up and given some big performances. These remind us of what it really takes to raise the bar. It's the extra work off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, and I never quit. We put that same passion into every model. Highlights make the reel. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to Mazda because there's more to you. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 network. And I want to tell you about an extra little thing that we have going on right now. Actually, it's a new thing that we've started up, and I think you really enjoy it. It's our Everydayer Club. I've talked about it before. I want to tell you about the Premier tier because I just had an extra episode that I'm pushing to the feed after I go live here on my real thought, like real deep thoughts on what the transfer portal feels like to me for BC and combining it with this new schedule. If you're part of the all access tier, you get that. You get texting with me. You get the newsletter, all the goodies that go along with this. Check it out. If you want to support the podcast, if you want to get extra content, this is the greatest way to do it. Sign up in the show notes below. All right, Mitch, we're now on to week 4. And
just a quick thing on Maine. They went 6-6 last year, 2 losses to FBS teams, 28-7 to Liberty, 45-17 to Georgia Southern, and they also lost to Stonehill, 13-10.
There you go. That's what happened with Maine. And so let's get into the next game because this is an interesting one. You get Virginia Tech back. Now, Virginia Tech is no longer a protected rivalry for BC. I think every Virginia Tech fan is thankful that it's no longer the case because I think they got tired of it. And honestly, BC fans did too. And this is the first the first game they've played. I know they played a couple years ago. I was going to say since they got rid of that designation, but last time they played, BC lost in 2024, 42-21 on the road. This time it's at home, and they're welcoming James Franklin, the new head coach of Virginia Tech, and basically the entire Penn State team that transferred over to Virginia Tech in the offseason.
Yep, going to be a lot of Penn State stuff in that game. Last 2 head coaches at Penn State being James Franklin and Bill O'Brien. James Franklin, I think the thing about James Franklin is I think he's a good coach. He might not be a great coach in the end. He's going to a school that is now investing a ton in their football program in a recruiting area that he has dominated for the last 10 to 15 years. And is he going to be contending for national championships? Probably not. Is he going to be a playoff team immediately or, a championship contender immediately? Probably not. But you've seen these teams where a coach leaves and they bring a lot of players to them. And usually it's been coaches moving up. It's been obviously Kurt Cincinnati from James Madison to Indiana. It's been Bob Chesney from James Madison to UCLA. I think you're going to kind of see it in reverse here where James Franklin is bringing a ton of guys from Penn State to Virginia Tech. And obviously you're seeing Iowa State from Matt Campbell bring his guys from Iowa State to Penn State. So there's a lot of talented players on Penn State's roster. A lot of them are coming to Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech has some decent players. Virginia Tech has owned BC in the last few years. BC hasn't won this game since 2021. Another red bandana game. It is at home, which is nice, but I have to look in more into Virginia Tech because, again, the roster has just changed over so much from the last few years when you had Kyron Drones running the show. So, and Brent Pry is back as the defensive coordinator, I believe, which is very funny given that he was previously the head coach and got fired.
Yep. I think they have their quarterback's going to be Ethan, was it Grunkemeyer? Grunkemeyer, who is a Penn State player. Mm-hmm. And so you have that game, and then you head back on the road for October 3rd at SMU. BC got pasted by SMU 45-13 last year, but the games before that have been pretty close. You get Kevin Jennings in his final swan song. It's going to be a big year for him. Thoughts on that game?
I think, that's going to be a big test for BC. I think when BC comes out of September, to have some positive feelings about the season, you got to hope for them to be 2-2 at least. You got to obviously win the main game, and then you got to pick off one of those other Power 4 opponents. And really, they're all of those 3 are kind of in the same tier at this point when we're projecting forward. So you pick any one of those off, especially if you give BC the red bandana magic in a revenge game against Dylan Lonergan. You think you like him in that one, but then I just don't know if you feel good enough about the other 2. So if you're coming out of September at 2-2, you're like, okay, this is fine. Nothing catastrophic happened. We can get through this. And then, SMU's kind of like how the Pitt game was last year, where it's like this game is going to be a test, where it's like, can this team, surprise us positively and, pick up a few more wins than we thought. And even if they are competitive against SMU on the road, then it's okay. Like, they're doing some things, but SMU is a pretty good team. They've handled BC in the last few years, given them a lot of problems. So you want BC to be competitive in that game, but if they're not, then you're looking at the rest of the schedule like, oh boy, this is going to be a really rough road to hoe for the next few months.
So after that, you get a bye week. And I think probably in a much better spot than it was last year.
Bye week in the second week of October, tale as old as time for BC. Like last year was the anomaly. Every other year, it's pretty much been the second week of October.
And it's fine. Yeah. Basically around the middle.
5 and 7. That's fine. That's great.
You can't complain about that. It's a good spot for it.
Yeah.
So then you end up again back at home on October 17th against Pitt. Last year, we were talking about getting pasted. This was probably the worst game of the season, losing 48-7 on the road to the Panthers.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough to do it again because Mason Heinchel is going to be back. They're going to have weapons. They are changing over defense. Randy Bates, their defensive coordinator, retired. I think they're promoting from within, so it's going to kind of be the same scheme. Pat Narduzzi's still there, but Desmond Reed is gone. I don't think he played in this game, but he was a very good player. Pitt's offensive line has really struggled the last few years, so that'll be an interesting thing to track. Again, I think BC has done well against Pitt when they've played in BC. When they've had to go to Pitt, it's been a bit more of a problem. So game coming back home, you think BC wants to, kind of avenge how bad that game was last year. You hope they can play better. And again, that's going to be another measuring stick game where it's, if you got paced by SMU, it's like, okay, can you come back? Can you pull off an upset against Pitt? Can you be competitive if Pitt is really good? Or does Pitt beat the crap out of you again? And if that's the case, then again, we're looking at a very long season.
And so you played that game at home, October 17th. October 24th, you're back on the road again. You're heading to Georgia to play in Atlanta against Georgia Tech. This was the craziest game of the year last year. We all remember Turbo with the touchdown and then unable to stop them at the very end, losing 36-34 in a game I thought BC didn't have any chance in, and they played pretty well in that one. This is an interesting one because they don't have Haynes King. They lost Aaron Philo, their quarterback, to Florida.
They lost Jamal Haynes. They lost Eric Rivers. They lost
their offensive coordinator, Buster Faulkner.
Yep.
Is there a chance that they turn back into a pumpkin this year?
Full pumpkin, I don't know. There's definitely going to be a huge regression with this team just because they lose so much. And honestly, like if they brought back a lot of the players and they still lost Faulkner, I would be very concerned. If it was just Faulkner back, I'd say, oh, okay, well, they'll figure something out. That's a great offense. They're able to do a lot with that stuff, especially if they got the quarterback back, Aaron Philo as well, who was the backup they were grooming to replace Haynes King. Then he leaves with Faulkner to go to Florida. So that's a problem. So I think Georgia Tech's due for a huge regression this year. See them struggle. Brent Key's whole thing has been toughness, but then that defense has just been absolutely terrible for the last pretty much his entire coaching tenure. And they just lost their defensive coordinator again as Blake Gideon, who played for Texas, is going back to Texas to be their defensive coordinator. So they've had, I think, 4 or 5 defensive coordinators over the last 3 or 4 years. It's been a ton of turnover there. Looking back at their roster from last year, they had a lot of older players, really at all 3 levels. So I think you're going to see, it's going to be a completely different roster than what BC's seen last year, and especially compared to 2023 when it last played. And,
the Fernando Mendoza's brother will probably be Alberto Mendoza was their big quarterback that they just brought in. So he has, just like we complain that BC hasn't played much, he hasn't played. He's played a little bit.
He's played in garbage time because Indiana, when they would play out of conference games, they would just blow people out. So he got to play in the fourth quarter a lot.
Yep. So then it's off to Duke on October 31st. We're talking and previewing right now, have no idea what Duke is going to look like because I think we can all assume Darian Mensah will not be their quarterback. But
they're looking at bringing in, I believe his name is Walker Eget. He's from San Jose State. They've been running an air raid offense over there under Kennedy Matalolo of all people for the last few years. So and he's trying to get a waiver though, because I think he has an injury and he's like a 6-year quarterback or something. I would not count on Mensah being there. They're also losing their wide receiver Cooper Barkate. I think they're losing corner Chandler Fields, the NFL. So I think you're going to see Duke, who again, reigning ACC champions. You're going to see Duke fall back a little bit with the downgrading significantly at quarterback, which is a shame just with how this whole portal stuff goes about. That would be the game I'll go to on the road. That's relatively close for me. Again, for some reason, BC doesn't only plays one Virginia school, and it's in Boston again, so might be at that one live.
Okay, all right, and we'll do the last four in our last segment. We're gonna talk about the Senior Bowl, but there isn't a whole lot right there, so let's keep the train rolling, talking schedule stuff. How's that sound, Mitch?
Great.
All right, we'll be back in just a moment. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or guesswork. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employment forms and work you to get every deduction that you can get. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. Locked on Boston College, AJ Black and Mitch Wolfe here. This is our schedule breakdown. We know the schedule now for BC. You could buy your season tickets now. I know a lot of you are jumping out of your seats to do that right at this moment. I'm going to get a phone call about that. But let's go on to our final four games. November 7th, BC gets their second game under the Bill O'Brien era against Florida State. Last time, BC beat them pretty handily in Tallahassee 28-13 in Bill O'Brien's first game. They don't have Tommy Castellanos anymore. That's good.
Nope, he decided to move on, try his NFL career, probably at a different position. They don't like quarterbacks who are 5'10" or shorter. So, yeah, that'll be interesting. Florida State coming back up here. Last time even was a red bandana game up in Alumni Stadium, and that was a competitive, interesting game. Florida State, they have Ashton Daniels, who was at Stanford, then was at Auburn last year, so he's their quarterback. They brought Gus Malzahn back. They still have Deuce Robinson, who's a very good big wide receiver. Weird team. Don't really know what to do with them. And honestly, by that time, Mike Norvell might be out. So I
was going to say, it's an interesting time to get them.
Yeah.
Because they could be toast at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
as we've seen with the Mike Norvell team, if they quit hard. So
and especially if they're coming up to Boston in late or mid-November and he's been fired and they're just trying to get out, then that could be a nice place to pick up a randomly surprising win if things can break BC's way.
All right.
Then they'll get boat raced by a team with much better athletes like they usually do when they play Florida State.
Exactly. So, well, anyways, speaking of tough parts of the schedule, the last three games, two of the three are this is tough. On November 14th, you head to Notre Dame. I'm going to go on a quick little rant here, and then I'll let you go. We found out about this game last year, right? I think it was like November.
Yeah, it was like in the middle of the season, basically, I think.
So if this is part of the ACC deal, fine. Just ignore what I have to say here. But if this was BC scheduling Notre Dame in November of the year you went 2-10, and you were going into a season when you had two Power 4 opponents on your schedule, I beg the question, what the heck are you doing?
Especially a year when Notre Dame returns a lot of talent. They're going to be gunning
on the road.
On the road. Going to be gunning for a lot of people. Going to be, trying to get back. Well, I don't know how hard they need to try out. They've been guaranteed a spot to make the college football playoff. So, but still, they're going to want to run through the schedule.
Yeah, they're going to go. They're going to go torched earth with their schedule because they're of the disrespect that they got from the committee.
Yeah. And the ACC, don't forget. But they are losing Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. They're two running backs who are very good players. So that's at least a bright spot for BC. And Malachi Fields is gone. No Malachi Fields for the first time since 2022. Yeah. No Malachi Fields on the schedule for BC. Thank God. Notre Dame's still going to be a really good team. You have CJ Carr, and after his first year, which was pretty good, he got better as the season progressed. So you just figure he's going to get even better next year. So that's concerning for BC. That's going to be a rough game to watch.
I'm looking up. There's a running back that they have, though. Nolan James.
It was a BC commit.
He'll run for 200 yards.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
BC commit. Yep. And so then you get Syracuse at home this time. Will this prevent Fran Brown from taking a shower or whatever?
Really wanted this to be the season finale so he could go another offseason without getting to shower.
Yeah.
Winners get washed, as he said. And to be clear, I think this is going to be another rough year for Syracuse. They probably have an easier schedule because last year was very difficult, but I just still don't think their team is very good, and they'll have to prove it to me that they are. So that should
they haven't done anything splashy or like noticeable.
Well, no. They signed Tusi, the rapper, who now they're not sure if he's coming.
Oh, right.
To play football. Who could have imagined?
Right. Well, that's working well for Fran Brown. So that's the penultimate game. And then the finale is on the road against a team that was a hair away from winning a national championship at Miami.
Yeah, that's going to be – I don't really care even – I mean, if it is Darian Mensah, then BC still has to play him, who was Duke's quarterback, and he's going down there. They're bringing back Mark Fletcher. They're bringing back some of their line. Actually, no, a lot of their line's gone.
Malachi Tony.
Jeez. Malachi Tony is an incredible player. They think they're bringing Ahmad Moten back, the defensive tackle. They're bringing back their linebacker, Mohamed Toure, who is an 8th-year player. And I think he was on Rutgers roster when BC played them to start the 2022 season. Absolutely insane. And their secondary is going to be a lot better than it was because they had a lot of young players there. So that's going to be a really rough way to end the season. At least, if you are going to that game, go down to Miami Thanksgiving. There are worse places to spend it than Miami, especially compared to Boston.
Oh, and you get to watch Omar Thornton.
That's true. Yeah, Omar Thornton revenge game. Very cool.
Fun.
Great.
Well, I don't even want to go over predictions yet. Let's leave it.
I think positively I could say 5-7. If everything goes right, I could see 5-7.
I'm gonna wait. I'm not gonna say anything because I just don't want to do it.
Yeah,
I just don't. So folks have been asking the spring season spring practice sessions start in March. I think it's March 10th. And again, it does not look like there's going to be a spring game. Kenyatta Watson put out the schedule. He was sending it out to recruits, and there was nothing. It's a scrimmage on the last day of practice. So the old spring game does not look like it's ever returning, and that stinks. But we'll be at practices. I'll be there. Mike Sidley will be there. We'll get a good read on how this new roster looks. I'm going to need I can't even remember the names at this point. The numbers is going to be, it's going to be tough, but we'll be all over that in about a month and a half. So stay warm. Yeah. We got about 2 feet of snow out here. My TV, I can't even get like network back up on this thing. I don't know why it's not working. All I wanted to do was get my picture so I could get my Locked On BC logo back there, but that wasn't working. So Mitch, where can people find you?
You can find me at Mitchell T. Wolfe, WOLFE on Twitter. Quick Senior Bowl thing. We just have the Senior Bowl measurements, heights and weights. We don't have arm lengths and hand sizes yet. Lewis Bond measured in at exactly his listed college weight, 5'11", 197. Logan Taylor, 6'6" and 3/8, 305 pounds. Jude Bowery, 6'4" and 7/8, 314 pounds. Quintavious Hutchins, 6'2" and a half, 229 pounds. So Hutchins, a little lighter than what you'd want. Everybody else looks pretty good. We'll have to see about arm lengths and hand sizes coming on. I'm hoping that I can get some film from practice. I was able to get that last year when Donovan Ezraku was there. So I'm going to be wanting to watch some one-on-ones, especially for Bond. For Hutchins, I probably want to watch more team stuff because I want to see how he plays the run against better competition. And then for Taylor and Bowery, want to see their one-on-ones definitely, and then want to see where they're playing Taylor because, again, I've thought he has been better at tackle. In the NFL, he probably is a guard, but I feel like his guard tape at BC has not been great, but he's also been dealing with injuries. So I'll be interested to see what positions they have him play. And I want to see how Bowery plays against some really good edge rushers that he's going to be up against. You got Clemson's TJ Parker is there. There's guys, LT Overton from Alabama. K'Ron Crawford from Auburn. It's a stacked roster as always. I mean, it's arguably even better. They were supposed to get both of the Miami edge rushers, Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor. I don't think they're coming now. I think they got excited about the idea, and then they're like, actually, I'm pretty banged up from this season, so I'm not coming.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Exactly.
All right. Well, you can follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. I'm going to have a ton of recruiting news up on Eagle Insider. I've been talking to recruits, and we're getting closer to visit season. Like that's going to line up with spring practices because staff is smart. They're not sending them up in the middle of a blizzard from kids from the South That's sure as heck is not going to sell you Boston College. I'll have all that, and I'll be back tomorrow with more details and more everything here on Locked On Boston College, your team every day.